Now, 5 minutes until 5, dozens of young people spent their weekend learning about the Earth's climate, and they did it right here in Atlanta. Interactive games taught children about serious topics like the environment, as well as the causes and the consequences of climate change at the Becoming a Climate Hero event at Create Atlanta. This is part of the Atlanta Science Festival, which is going on for one more week. The event was free with the goal of empowering children to become good stewards of the environment, to make a difference in their community through actions, large and small.